إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him and we seek His aid and assistance and we beg His forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah from the evils of our own souls and the consequences of our sins. Whomever Allah guides aright, none can misguide, and whomever Allah leaves to stray, none can guide aright. I testify that none deserves worship but Allah alone without partner, and I testify that Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam is Allah's final messenger and His most devout and sincere worshipper. The best speech is the speech of Allah Ta'ala, and the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. And the worst of all things are those that are newly introduced into the religion. Everything newly introduced into the religion is a bid'ah, an innovation, and every innovation in religion is misguidance, and misguidance leads to the fire. Today we continue looking through the sections on the topic of at-talaq, divorce and marriage, from the book Al-Afnan al-Nadiyah of Sheikh Zayd Al-Madkhali Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, as part of the series of classes which are geared towards issues concerning the Muslim woman and concerning those who have the Muslim women under their charge from amongst the men. And in the previous classes we've been looking at some of the rules and regulations of at-talaq, divorce, and how divorce is brought about. Today we continue on that topic as the author, the Shaykh, mentions two issues related to how the talaq, the divorce, is actually initiated or given. And so he mentions here two issues, and these are the issues of having witnesses, or is it obligatory, is it wajib to have witnesses to the pronouncement of talaq, and also to the pronouncement or to the action of revoking a divorce and taking back a wife who has been divorced in a way that is revocable, which can be revoked, in which she can come back and the normal marriage contract can be resumed. And so the author, the Sheikh, mentions that there are a number of different opinions amongst the scholars about whether it is actually wajib, obligatory, to have a witness or to have witnesses to the talaq, to the divorce, and likewise to the raj'ah, or the revoking of the divorce. And he mentions that the most well-known or the most well-documented opinions is the first opinion is that there are two, and the first of those opinions of the scholars is that al-ishhad, or having witnesses to the pronouncement of the divorce, this is a sunnah mu'akkada. It is a highly emphasized and recommended sunnah, and it is not wajib in of itself. It's not obligatory in of itself. So it has great benefits. It has the benefit of making it clear and having witnesses to the divorce taking place, but it's not obligatory according to this position of the ulama. And the Shaykh Zayd Hafidahullah mentions that this is the opinion or the position of the uh, majority of the scholars. So they say that if a man divorces his wife, and so he pronounces the divorce, this occurs, and this is, this is legally binding. It's fine. It's valid, even though, even if he did not have witnesses, even if he did not bring witnesses or have people witness his pronouncement of the divorce. And likewise, they say, if after having pronounced the divorce, if it's the kind of divorce where he can take back his wife, he can revoke the divorce. If he revokes the divorce, he takes her back, then it's not. This is not, or this does not require again him to have witnesses to bear witness that he revoked the divorce and took back his wife. And the position that is famous and which is known amongst the ulama is that in this case, or in these types of cases, there is no witness, there is no wali, there's no guardian or legal guardian of the wife or anyone else who has, who's required, whose permission or whose witness is required in these matters. And so they say that although it is something highly recommended, as is mentioned, or it's something commanded in the texts of the Quran and the Sunnah, it is not something which is wajib, obligatory. And so if a person were to divorce his wife without witnesses, and if a person were to take back, to revoke his wife, revoke the divorce and take back the wife without witnesses, then this is also allowed, and he has not, and it's not something which is invalid or which is wrong or haram. And some of the ulama who take this position, they mention as a dalil, or as a kind of evidence to support this position, a narration which is mentioned about the fatwa of one of the Sahaba, one of the companions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with them. And so it's reported in the Sunan of Abu Dawood and in other collections of hadith on the authority of Imran ibn Hussein radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, that he was asked about a man who divorced his wife, and then after that he had sexual relations with her during, her waiting period, and he had not taken witnesses to the divorce, and neither to the fact that he was revoking the divorce, taking her back. And so we know that what's implied here is that the fact that this man, after having divorced his wife, he had intimate relations, he had full relations with her, this itself is an act of taking back the wife and revoking the divorce. So when he divorced, he had neither taken witnesses or had witnesses to the divorce, and neither to the fact that he wanted to take back his wife. He didn't express that and have witnesses to that. And so Imran ibn Hussein, after having been asked about such a situation, he said this woman was divorced upon other than the Sunnah, not upon the Sunnah, because the Sunnah is to have the witnesses, and she came back to her husband not upon the Sunnah. We should have witnesses for the divorce and for the revoking of the divorce. And he should not do this kind of thing again. And he said, and in some narrations there's the additional wording in the version which is reported by At-Tabarani, where at the end Imran ibn Hussein said, "Wastaghfirillah," and seek the forgiveness of Allah. So they use this as to say, or to support the position that although it's highly recommended and it's good and it's to have witnesses, it's not a requirement, and they regard this as indicating that the divorce and the revoking of the divorce actually occurred. It was legally correct, although it was against the Sunnah. It wasn't something which was done strictly according to the Sunnah. The second opinion, or the second position of the scholars, is that al-ishhad, to get witnesses, or to have witnesses for the raj'ah, for the revoking of the divorce, is wajib, is obligatory, but it's not obligatory to have witnesses when a divorce is pronounced. And they say, because there is an ijma', there is a consensus of scholars that it is not obligatory to have witnesses when a person pronounces divorce upon his wife. And this ijma' or this consensus is mentioned by some of the ulama. The Shaykh mentions, for example, Imam al-Shawkani discusses this consensus in Nail al-Awtar. And since that is the case, it cannot be said that it's wajib, it's obligatory to have witnesses. And one of the proofs, one of the indications, or one of the evidences for this position that it is obligatory, it's wajib, when a person takes back the wife, revokes the divorce, but it's not wajib when a person initiates a divorce. They mention this as a proof, one of the verses in the Quran, one of the statements of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the noble verse where Allah commands, and He said, وَأَشْهِدُوا ذَوِي عَدْلٍ مِنْكُمْ, and take or have witnesses, get the witnesses of two trustworthy, upright people amongst you. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Before we were disconnected, we were just summarizing the two positions that the Sheikh Zayd mentioned with regards to the issue of, is it obligatory to have witnesses or to take witnesses in the pronouncing of divorce, and likewise in the taking back of the wife or revoking of a revocable divorce. So the Shaykh mentioned that these are the two opinions. One is that it is sunnah mu'akkada with regards to pronouncing divorce as well as taking back the wife and revoking the divorce. And the other well-known opinion is that it is wajib with regards to taking back the wife and revoking the divorce, but it's not obligatory when pronouncing the divorce. And the Shaykh mentioned the reasoning behind that, and then he adds a point here. He says, as regards taking the opinion or taking the position that it's wajib, it's obligatory to have witnesses when a person revokes the divorce and takes his wife back, this does not mean, the Shaykh says, this does not necessarily mean that this raj'ah or taking back the wife is not valid. It doesn't legally take place, and it's not legally valid if a person doesn't have witnesses. So there are two things here, and this happens with regards to, or this kind of thing will come up when we speak about some of the ahkam related to certain types of uqud or contracts and and marriage and divorce and so on, there are two things which we shouldn't confuse. One is the obligation to do something, to do divorce in a particular way, which we say is a talaq sunni, is a divorce which is done according to the sunnah. And there's another issue, which is if someone does a divorce, or in this case, in this example, revokes a divorce in a way which is not completely in accordance with the sunnah, it leaves out some of the obligations. It's still discussed by the ulama whether this divorce or this revoking the divorce, whether it takes place or not, whether it legally is valid or not, even if a person does it in a way which is haram. So in the first case, if a person does pronounce a divorce, or he takes back the wife in a way which is in accordance with the sunnah, with all the obligations being met, with witnesses and so on and so forth, according to the opinion that says it's obligatory to do so, then that is valid. And also at the same time, there's no sin upon the person hasn't fallen into any haram. However, if a person pronounces divorce or takes back his wife, revokes the divorce in a way in which he leaves out some of the obligations, he doesn't fulfill some of the obligations according to those ulama who say those things are obligatory, even if that person does that, what some of the ulama explain is that there is sin upon the person, upon the man, for doing the divorce or the revoking of the divorce in a way which is wrong, leaves out some of the obligations. But even though there is sin upon him for doing that, it doesn't mean that that divorce or that revoking of the divorce actually doesn't take place. It could actually take place, it could be valid, legally valid, even though there's sin upon the person for doing it in the wrong way. So the Shaykh also mentions here, with regards to the revoking of the divorce and taking back the wife, the Shaykh said, it's not lazim, it's not necessarily the case that if a person does not have witnesses to the taking back of the wife and the revoking of her divorce, this does not necessarily mean that the raj'ah, the taking back of the wife, doesn't actually occur. It does actually occur according to some ulama. And the Shaykh Zayd Hafidhahullah mentions, he mentions in this, he says, وعلى القول بوجوب الإشهاد عليها فلا يلزم منه عدم صحتها إذا كانت بدون إشهاد، فقد ذكر بعض الفقهاء أنها تصح بالفعل مقترنا بالنية ولو لم يتلفظ بالقول، وفي رواية عن أحمد أنها تصح بالوطء ولو لم ينوي به رجعة. Shaykh Zayd said, if we take the position, or based on the position, that it's wajib, it's obligatory to have witnesses when a person is pronouncing the taking back of the wife, or wants to take back the wife and revoke the divorce, even if we say this or take this position, this does not mean that the revoking of the divorce is not valid, legally valid, if it is done without the witnesses. Because some of the fuqaha, some of the scholars and jurists have mentioned another situation, that the taking back and revoking of the divorce is valid just by, or as soon as a person does the action of taking back the wife, he does it, even if he does not say that he's taking back his wife. If a person does something to take back his wife and to revoke the divorce, and he has the niyyah, they say, if this action or this behavior of his is accompanied by the intention to take back his wife, then this taking back of the wife and revoking the divorce, it occurs, and it's legally valid, it's legally recognized, even if he doesn't say, I'm taking you back, or I want to take back the wife and I'm revoking the divorce. So that being the case, what the Shaykh is implying, he's saying is that, so therefore, if a person, let alone he didn't say it to the wife, he didn't say that he's taking her back, but he does something to take her back, to revoke the divorce, then if he didn't, then also the case is that if he didn't have witnesses to this, it's also a legitimate, or it's also a valid, legally recognized taking back and revoking of the divorce. And likewise, the Shaykh mentioned it's also one of the reported opinions of and positions of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala is that the revoking of the divorce is legally considered to be binding and valid if a person, after having divorced his wife, has sexual relations with her, he has sexual intercourse with his wife, even if he didn't intend, even if he didn't have this intention or make any kind of intention to take back the wife and to revoke the divorce, just by the fact that he's had relations with his wife, then this is regarded as a valid and a legally recognized taking back and revoking of the divorce. So that's one of the issues about the wujub, or the obligation or not of having witnesses to the divorce and to the revoking of the divorce. The next issue which the Shaykh mentions here is the issue of the validity of having an agent, someone act on your behalf in terms of divorce, such that and also in revoking the divorce, such that you leave the pronouncement of the divorce and informing the wife or her family of the divorce, you leave it to someone else as to represent you and to be your agent in this regard. And this, they say, is also with regards to the taking back and revoking of the divorce. The ulama who explain that this can be done, they say this, it's analogous, and it's something which is the same. They treat it in the same way as the issue of having an agent, having someone represent you in the acceptance of marriage in the first place. When a person is going to get married, is going to take a wife, that person doesn't have to be there in person to say that he has accepted the marriage and he agrees to all the other rules or the shurut, the requisites, and everything else. If all of these things have been done in a valid way, the wali has given his permission, the guardian of the woman has given his permission, and he agrees to the marriage, and the wife, the wife to be, the woman, consents to the marriage, then a man doesn't have to be physically there to get married. He can send someone on his behalf to be his agent to accept the marriage contract. So the ulama say the same is the case with regards to the divorce and the revoking of a divorce. If a person is himself in person is not or cannot be present in a situation to inform the wife, to inform the family, to inform the people involved that he's divorcing his wife or that he is revoking a divorce, then he can assign someone as an agent for himself and as a representative to convey this intention and to convey this on his behalf. And they say this is correct and this is valid. And one of the proofs for this is the hadith in Sahih Al-Bukhari, reported or it's a narration that occurred in an incident involving Abu Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, the companion. He said in this narration to another sahabiyya, to someone else who he had family ties with, he said to her, to Hakim binti Qarid, he said to her, أتجعلين أمرك إلي؟ قالت نعم. So he said to her, do you put your affair in my hand? Do you make me represent you and put your affair with regards to your marriage and so forth in my hand, on her behalf? And she said yes. So he was therefore representing her in terms of the marriage. And then so he said قد تزوجتك, I have married you, I have given you in marriage. So in this hadith, in this incident, the companion Abdurrahman bin Auf is representing the consent of Hakim radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. And once she has given her permission, and she has given, or she had made him the representative to express her wish, her agreement or her consent to the marriage, then this became the case. And so after having known this, he pronounced, or he said on her behalf, that the marriage had taken place. And so the ulama, these ulama, and the Shaykh Zayd is saying here, the same is the case with regards to at-tawkil, making someone a representative for yourself in taking a decision or in conveying the decision is called at-tawkil. So that person becomes the wakil or agent or representative. So the Shaykh said, at-tawkil, getting someone to be your representative in terms of at-talaq, divorce, and in terms of ar-raj'ah, revoking the divorce, is the same. It's the same as this. If the permission is given, if that person has been requested to represent someone else, then that is valid, and he can express the wishes or express what the person wants, the person involved wants, in terms of either divorcing or taking back the wife. And this is also the case, the Shaykh adds as a point of benefit, this is the case with regards to all those kinds of contracts, uqud, because marriage is a type of contract where there's an agreement between people to live in marriage. Obviously it's a type of contract, and likewise there are many other contracts in which it is possible for another person to represent someone who is one side of the contract, and if that person is given that right and given that responsibility or that position, then it's valid for them to represent the person involved in terms of many different kinds of contracts in buying and selling, in business, and whatever the case. Likewise, the Shaykh said, is the case with divorce, in the same way that it can be done in getting married in the first place. It can be done with regards to divorce, with regards to the revoking of the divorce, and many other kinds of contracts. We'll mention quickly another issue, or begin to talk about the next topic before the end of today's class. The next topic that the Shaykh mentions is talking about now the actual number of divorces that can take place, and what happens when the divorce, or when the maximum number of divorces, which are 2 divorces that can be revoked, and then the final divorce, which after which, so there are 3 divorces that can be pronounced. What happens afterwards, and what are the roles, responsibilities, and restrictions upon the people involved. So we know, first and foremost, that the divorce in which a person can take back the divorce and revoke the divorce, that kind of divorce can happen twice in a marriage. So the first 2 times, if a person divorces his wife one time, then he has the legal right and the ability to revoke that divorce, and it's counted as one divorce. This is the basic rule. And then if he divorces her again at some point, then this is the second divorce, and he can also, within her idda period, within her waiting period, take her back and revoke the divorce. But after those two divorces, if a person then divorces his wife again for the third time, then there is no raj'ah, there is no taking back and revoking of the divorce, and the divorce becomes final and irrevocable. That's the general rule. In each case, after each divorce or after the first two divorces, there is the idda or waiting period in which the wife has to she waits. She's regarded as still being married, in the sense that she's not free to go and get married again. She is still in a period of separation from her husband, but is still legally the wife. And in that period of time, he could revoke the divorce and they could get back together. So the Shaykh is explaining that there are these two divorces in which a person has the choice or has the ability, the legal right to take back and to revoke the divorce and take back his wife. So that separation ends. And also that there is an idda, there is a waiting period after the divorce, which the woman must wait and must stay separated, in the sense that she has had a divorce pronounced upon her, but she's still regarded as legally the wife. She cannot go off and get married within that waiting period. So this is evidenced clearly in the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The asl, the evidence for this system of divorce is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah, الطلاق مرتان فإمساك بمعروف أو تسريح بإحسان, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the meaning of which is, divorce is twice. Divorce can occur twice, 2 times, and thereafter either you keep the wives in a good way, you keep them and treat them well, and you keep them with you as your wives in a good way, or you let them go in a good way, with benevolence and with kind treatment, and without harming them. So the first 2 divorces are mentioned, at-talaqu marratan, they're mentioned in this noble ayah, and then a person either is going to keep his wife, or then the ayah mentions أو تسريح بإحسان, and that's the 3rd divorce, where a person lets his wife go finally. That's the final 3rd divorce, and he lets her go التسريح بإحسان, in a good way, with benevolence, with kindness, without maltreating, mistreating, or being unjust to the wife. So that's the asl, or the foundation of the system, the very advanced and very just and fair system of divorce in the Sharia, in the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the law of Islam. Related to this then is the issue of when a person divorces the wife for the first time or for the second time, then when the period of waiting comes to an end, either after the first time or the second time, or when a person has divorced, he divorces the wife for the first time, and the wife, this woman involved, is a person, is a wife whose marriage has not been consummated, or when the separation, the ending of the marriage, happens by way of al-khula', the annulment of the marriage, which is initiated on behalf of the wife, where the wife wants to free herself and she wants to end the marriage because she can no longer remain married to this man, and she therefore gives back her mahar, or she agrees to give back some property or some wealth or something as a token of her freeing herself from the marriage, and she initiates this herself, in any of these situations, when the marriage comes to the end, and either of these situations is true, one, that the divorce has been pronounced one time, and the iddah, the waiting period, has come to an end, or it's the second divorce, and then the iddah, the waiting period of the wife, comes to an end, or when the woman is divorced once and she's a woman whose marriage has not been consummated yet, or she is separated and the marriage comes to an end because of a khula', which we will come to in more detail, where she initiates the end of the marriage, and she wants to come to an agreement with the husband as regards to kind of freeing herself, ransoming herself from the marriage. Then in either of these situations, in any of those situations, the Shaykh mentions, there is no raj'ah, there is no revoking and taking back the woman in these cases. Rather, if a man wanted to marry this woman again, then he is treated, and he is to be treated as a suitor, someone who is making the khitbah. He is proposing anew. He's just like someone else who's proposing again as a new candidate for marriage. And if his proposal is accepted and she wants to be married to that man again, then it is upon him they have to have a new marriage contract. He has to give a new mahar, a new dowry, and so on, as a new marriage proposal. So he proposes again, and they agree, or that the wife to be, or her wali, her guardian, and so on, they accept a new mahar, and it's like a new marriage where the rules and the conditions of the marriage have to be fulfilled. So this is not, in those three situations we mentioned, in those three cases, this is not a raj'ah, this is not revoking the marriage, this is a new marriage, and the man can't actually be considered to take back this wife or this former wife in those cases where that we mentioned, those three cases. The first being that a divorce is pronounced once, the iddah, the waiting period, comes to an end, there's a total separation there, and this is an irrevocable divorce now, once that the waiting period has come to an end, but they can get married again with a new contract. Or the same applies if it's the second divorce and the waiting period comes to an end. He hasn't taken his wife back within that waiting period, within the iddah. If the iddah comes to an end, the woman is separated fully, the divorce is complete, and he can't take her back, but he can marry her again with a new marriage contract. Also, if a woman is married and before the consummation of marriage occurs, if the person divorces the wife before he consummates the marriage, then in that case, he can also, if he divorces her and the iddah comes to an end, and there's no revoking of that divorce, it's a permanent divorce, he can marry again anew. And likewise, if there is a khula', or the woman frees herself of the marriage, she ransoms herself, then also it is true that that marriage is permanent. It's irrevocable. He can't take her back. Obviously, he wouldn't be able to take her back because this would go against the hikmah and go against the whole purpose of the khula' in the first place. And then the woman could be treated unjustly. She wants to get out of the marriage. She agrees to get out of the marriage. She comes to an agreement to have a divorce. In English, we call it a divorce, but it's a khula'. It's a special kind of a divorce which is initiated by the wife, and it leads to the ending of the marriage. She does this, and she gives back her mahar, or she gives back her some amount of wealth. She comes to an agreement with the husband's side, and therefore the marriage is ended by her giving up some of her wealth or some of her property. And then if we say that this husband is like a divorce and the husband could just take back his wife, then this would lead to this could lead to the abuse of women and to them being taken advantage of, where a man gets back his wealth from the woman, agreeing to the khula, and then he decides that he's going to take her back and she remains his wife. And she's in the situation that she started with, and that is that she can't be married to this husband anymore. She can't live and fulfill the rights of the marriage, to fulfill the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so on. So in these situations, if the marriage comes to an end, there is no revoking of the divorce or the separation or the end of the marriage. And if they do want to get married again, then they have to get married with a new contract, with a new mahar. She is given a new amount of wealth, and a new the consent and all the other rules of marriage have to be met, and this is a new contract. So the next issue that we're going to go on to, and we'll have to do that in the next class, bi'idhnillah, is the issue of the absolutely and totally irrevocable divorce. Because when these three situations that we've mentioned here are three situations in which the marriage comes to an end and there is no revoking of the divorce, but they have the option of getting married again. But there's also a situation where the marriage is an even more final divorce, or even more irrevocable, and that is when three divorces occur. The three divorces are pronounced, and the waiting period comes to an end. This type of divorce is the kind of divorce where the husband, the former husband and wife, can never get married again. They can never ever get married again unless and until the woman is married to someone else. She gets married again, a legitimate kind of marriage, not a marriage in which they try to organize a way to get back to the former husband, but a legitimate, a sincere marriage where she wants to get married again. Both parties, the man and the woman, actually want the new husband, actually want to get married. They get married, and then if that marriage comes to an end, it happens to be the case that it comes to an end, not that it's planned, it's not a planned divorce, but it comes to an end, then the former husband and wife can get married again if he proposes to her again. He marries her again as a new marriage, a new marriage contract. And that we'll come on to in the next class, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We'll end there as it's coming close to salah time. أقول هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والله تعالى أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.